Thank you for joining us here on NCN for this special engagement that we are about to have. My name is Shukwan Gill, and I'm about to have a conversation with the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, the Honorable Mohbir Anil Nandlall. Minister Nandlall, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Minister, the news has just emerged that the government has provided significant financial assistance to a number of the families that were affected as a result of the Mahdia fire that happened some weeks ago. Can you tell us a little bit about the overview of that engagement and how we've come to this place?
Thank you very much. And let me begin by reiterating that it continues to be extremely difficult and painful to discuss even the horrendous tragedy that took place at Mahdia. The government can never begin to imagine what parents and relatives have endured and no doubt continue to endure as a result of this tragedy. You would recall that from the inception, led by His Excellency the President himself and a number of members of cabinet, government has been in the forefront of offering every type of assistance possible and necessary to the victims and their relatives and families. Government, since then, led by His Excellency the President, made a commitment publicly that government will continue to offer whatever assistance may be necessary and requisite survive this ordeal and to ensure that they continue to cope with this tragedy in the near future. Government thus far has been discharging that commitment in an unwavering way. What the government has done is already part of the public narrative. And it may not be necessary for me to recite them all. But I believe that it's public record that from the night of the tragedy, led by the President himself and a number of ministers, government has been on the ground, ferrying all those affected, including parents, relatives, etc., from Region 8 to Georgetown, ensuring that they are adequately accommodated at hotels in the city, adequately provided for with all the necessaries, and that the affected persons were all receiving the required medical attention. I believe one child is still overseas with their parent, with its parents, his or her parent, receiving medical attention at a facility in the United States of America. And that went on for a period of time. When the funerals had to be done, of course, the government stepped in and took care of that. all the things that were damaged in the fire were replaced. In fact, the president assigned a minister to each family affected and instructed that the ministers deal directly with these families. All of these ministers, their cell phone numbers were given to the head of the household, and those relatives and families of the affected persons had direct contact and still have direct contact with these ministers. And whatever requests they made were addressed by the ministers themselves, not handed down to some junior staff member, but the ministers themselves. That position still obtains. When the president met with the families, and as the ministers continued to engage, the families made numerous other requests. They wanted to do different things, and they requested assistance for those things to be acquired, to help them continue with their lives and livelihood, to ensure that they are able to cope with this disaster, so that they can continue to look after the siblings and the survivors of this horrendous tragedy. The requests were various and varying. Some wanted cash, some wanted other items. Rather than the government procure all the different items, Cabinet resolved that a sum of money be paid to each family, those who suffered fatalities and those who suffered serious injuries, and then yet another category of those who may not have suffered so serious injuries. And that decision was made. Myself and Dr. Ashni Singh were assigned the responsibility of executing that decision. I went to Mahdia because rather than bring all the people out, we went to Region 8 and brought them out from the villages, met with each family, made it very clear to them that this is not a compensation, because government really can't. And it would be insensitive to think that the government can compensate for the tremendous loss, pain, anguish, and suffering that those people endured. One can't begin to think that one can put money on the lives of those who perished and those who injured. It would be highly insensitive to even begin to have that kind of discourse. And that is why if you look at the agreement itself, it says expressly that it is an expression of continued financial support, and there is a pledge in there for the government to continue to offer this financial support. And we did so. When I was cogitating upon this assignment, it struck me that detractors can say, look, this is the government going in to meet with these Amerindians and getting them to sign an agreement without proper legal advice. As a result, after discussion with His Excellency the President, it was decided that 2 lawyers will travel. 2 lawyers in private practice will travel and will meet with the families and explain to them in very clear and simple language the nature and purport of the exercise in which the government is engaging them, and also go through clause by clause with them the agreement that they were requested to sign. It was ensured that at that meeting they had a translator, they had the vice chairman of the region, because the chairman was not available. Of course, the regional executive officer was present. We had 2 social workers attached to the Ministry of Human Services present, who have been working with the family from the inception to offer any type of social type of support that the family may require. And the engagement was done in a very open way, with all the explanations, etc., being offered, and all the relatives and families were engaged individually and were allowed to ask any questions that they wish. Right? And that's how 20 agreements so far have been executed. You may wish to ask, why put it in writing? The truth of the matter is that in government, certain difficult decisions have to be made. And those who wield the powers of government shoulder the burden of making those decisions. The monies that we are dealing with are not the monies coming from the personal bank accounts of the ministers. It's monies that are coming from the public treasury. It's public funds. Whenever there is an expenditure of public funds, there is a legal duty on those who are dealing with those public funds to ensure that there is a level of accountability and transparency that meets acceptable standards. I am the legal advisor of the government. It is my duty to ensure that those requirements are met. Yeah. Once monies are going to be paid, there are certain things that have to be included in the document. They were included in this document, and they were explained to the families, both by myself and the lawyer who was there on their behalf. I see it being reported in the press that some hush-hush deal.
Yeah, and I want to ask you specifically about that, Minister, and especially as the Attorney General in this process dealing with this issue. It has begun to circulate in the media that this is hush money. I want to ask you specifically, AG, are you in the business of shutting people up?
My friend, unfortunately, the press has begun to twist the narrative. The reason why this exercise has not yet been made public is because not a single cent has been paid. And the exercise is ongoing. Obviously, this is not monies that were budgeted for. These are monies that will have to be disclosed to the National Assembly and at other public fora where the law requires it to be done. And it will be done. But the exercise is ongoing. So I don't know on what basis persons have come to the conclusion that there is going to be, that it is being done in a hush manner. A person has already been charged and placed before the court with 20 counts of murder, I believe. And I am not yet sure that those are all the charges. Maybe there are more, but that's a matter for the Director of Public Prosecutions. Also, I've seen a connection made between this engagement and the COI.
Yes.
Let me make it abundantly clear that there is no connection between the two. The Commission of Inquiry, as promised by His Excellency, will be established and will be conducted in accordance with the terms of reference, establishing that Commission of Inquiry.
And that is what I wanted to ask specifically in relation to the terms of reference, Minister. We have not yet seen those terms of reference. How can we be so sure as a citizenry that this engagement with these families will not meddle with the outcome of the COI?
But how can it? This is the government voluntarily continuing to offer assistance that it started to offer when the tragedy started. And there is a pledge by the government to continue to offer different forms of support in the near future. This has nothing to do with a Commission of Inquiry. The Commission of Inquiry will have its terms of reference. They have not yet been drawn. And when they are drawn, the Commission, if the terms of reference mandates it, will take into account all the matters that it is obliged to do by virtue of those terms of reference, which may include reviewing all the help and financial assistance that the government may have given, and many, many other matters that has nothing to do with this agreement and this engagement that we have had with the family. The thing is, persons who are not actually engaged in and involved in this exercise and who may not have met these families who are affected, they have no idea of the state of these people's welfare. And perhaps it may be insensitive for me to go into details. But these are persons who are deeply affected and who need a lot of financial assistance and need a lot of assistance. And as a responsible, caring and affectionate government, we are simply acceding to requests made, as well as we are addressing a situation with which we are confronted, as I believe we have a responsibility to do. We should be complimented rather than condemned, as I see some attempts are being made to do in certain quarters by disengagement. You know, the government didn't have to do this. You realize that? We did not have to offer assent in financial assistance. The fact is that we have done it. And not because anyone pressured us to do it, because we felt that it is the least that could have been done and can be done in the circumstances, having regard to the prevailing facts. And we are saying that we will continue to offer whatever assistance may be required of varying types as we continue to ensure that the relatives and families of this horrible tragedy survive it and are able to cope with the consequences flowing from it.
AG, we've seen also proffered in the press that there is an amount that is attached to a number of the families that will be receiving. We've seen that it's been 5 million, but is this across the board or does it differ?
When you have committed to make a decision to offer financial assistance, you have to then make decisions regarding to quantum and basis for arriving at this quantum. As I said, and I want to make it again crystally clear, this money is not intended to bring back any child. It's not intended to repair any injury. It is not intended to cure any psychological scar and emotional stress. Not at all. We can't do that. And we will never attempt to monetize this tragedy and the human rights sufferings that have emanated therefrom. And I think that I need to reiterate that. Yes. But you want to help, and the people need help. A lot of the, as I said, the detractors, I don't know that these people have received help from any other quarter. I don't want to be accusatory at all. I just need to put that on the table. And as I said, as the government said in a public statement issued earlier today, we hope that persons are not going to exploit and abuse this tragedy for their selfish pursuits. We hope that the dignity, the solemnity, and the sacredness which surround this tragedy will be respected, and persons will not be insensitive to the raw wounds of those who are still in pain, anguish, and suffering.
AG, as we wrap up our interview for today, I just wanted to give you the opportunity finally to say any closing remarks on this issue and what government will continue to do to support these families.
As I said, Cabinet is still deliberating on the menu of measures that will unfold as government continues to find ways and means of helping these families. This is simply one installment of assistance, and I hope that it is viewed that way. The Commission of Inquiry will inquire into the event and will elucidate for us more information which can put us in a better place, I suppose, as a society going forward, while at the same time it will hopefully make some crucial causative findings. A charge of murder, or several charges of murder, have already been instituted, and that's traveling its natural course in the arena of the courts, and we have to await the outcome. We have to work with these families and continue to work with these families to ensure, most importantly, that the parents survive, but perhaps most importantly, the siblings, the friends, the classmates, schoolmates, and the younger people, younger children, younger persons, who would have had some connection with this horrible tragedy, they survive this without undue psychological and emotional trauma. And I think that is our paramount responsibility and priority as we go forward. And I hope that a thinking and a sensible nation appreciates that.
AJ, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this discussion with us today.
You're welcome.
You've just heard from the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs